Well, for survivors and victims' families of the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre in Connecticut, the attack at the Robb Elementary School in Texas brings up chilling reminders of a very dark day in American history. Scarlett Lewis's son, Jesse, was just 6 years old when he was killed, along with 19 other students and 6 adults. And Scarlett joins me now. Scarlett, thank you so much for joining me. I thought of all of you because I was on air at the time in America at CNN when this happened. It was an absolutely harrowing story to report on, as indeed had been the similar massacre at Dunblane in Scotland in the mid-90s. And in fact, this morning I had an email exchange with one of the mothers of one of the children who died at Dunblane, because I recognised that for all of you trapped in this appalling club of mothers and fathers who've lost kids to these school massacres, when another one happens, it must take you all right back to the day that you lost your own children. Is that what it was like for you when you heard about this?
Absolutely, Piers. I was living the experience right alongside all of those parents when they were waiting to get word whether their child was going to be found dead or alive, those hours, those torturous hours. And then, my first thought this morning was how they would wake up and for one split second forget, and then this crushing blow would come down over them that their child was dead, that yesterday they were planning the summer fun, and today they're going to have to start thinking about writing an obituary. They're going to have to start planning for funerals. And it was a gut punch to me, and so incredibly painful. And honestly, I can't believe that I'm standing here talking to you 10 years after the murder of my own son, Jesse, at Sandy Hook, alongside 19 of his first grade classmates and 6 educators. And now here we have another one after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of school shootings later. And of course, Columbine 20 years before. And we are still hearing the same tired narrative. It is so frustrating.
You know, there's the saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. You could switch this round and say that with these massacres in America and the school shootings, the definition of insanity is doing nothing again and again and again and expecting a different result. You know, I knew after Sandy Hook that if there was no change at all in the way that America was going to respond to these massacres, then inevitably there would be more of them.
I felt the same way, Piers. I saw some movement, but we're always a step behind. And the frustrating thing is, these are preventable, every single one. And we're reactive. And as you said, we do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. It's the definition of crazy. That's why after Jesse's murder, Obama flew in. He was talking about gun control, and I realized that had failed, obviously, for Sandy Hook. And so I took a different approach. I decided to focus on the root cause of the pain and suffering that leads to these events. And so, in other words, offering schools, homes, and communities skills and tools that they can use that help kids face their hurt and pain, be able to manage it, live with it, grow through it, be strengthened by it, and flourish. I think that this is absolutely 100% necessary. It should be in every single school. And I'm actually on my Choose Love bus tour right now. You caught me in New Hampshire, working for Governor Sununu, traveling around the state, bringing love, hope, and healing to communities here that we've been doing through the pandemic, and we will continue to do. You
do remarkable work, and it's very inspiring that out of such an appalling tragedy, you're able to find the strength to do this, and I commend you for that. I want to take you back to what happened to your boy. He was 6 years old, and he was an absolute little hero because he was in the classroom when the shooter, Adam Lanza, came in and his gun jammed, and your little lad, Jesse, shouted at his friends to get out of the classroom, which a large number of them did. I think 8 or 9 of the kids got out, and then he was shot dead. an absolute hero. Was that in keeping with his character?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was Jesse. And if he wasn't coming back as we waited for those hours, I knew that he would have done something brave. And when the shooter had shot his way through the glass doors of Sandy Hook Elementary School, he made a left down the first grade hallway. Of course, he knew where that was because he had attended that school. The principal and guidance counselor were meeting with a parent. They were startled. They opened the door to see what the noise was all about. They were gunned down, and then the shooter turned into Jesse's first grade classroom. Everyone was scattered. His gun actually ran out of bullets at that time, and during the short delay that it took him to change his clip, Jesse called for his classmates to run. And he is credited with saving 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. No child should ever be asked to do that in school. I mean, it is our responsibility to keep our kids safe and to address their mental health and well-being. And we have to start taking that responsibility a lot more seriously. In fact, we need to start making our kids a priority.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that one of the worst things about these massacres, certainly the last 2 and Sandy Hook, is the age of the people doing this. And there seems to be a pattern of sort of disenfranchised young kids, 18, 19, 20, disconnected from society, who I think this one was addicted to video games and so on, which I think also was the one at Sandy Hook. But what strikes me as completely perplexing, I think it does to many people in America as well as outside, is that none of them could have bought a beer legally in any of the states that they were living. They couldn't buy a Kinder Surprise chocolate egg, but they can go and buy a semi-automatic rifle. And this is what they do legally. I mean, the last 2 massacres were committed by 18-year-olds who bought guns perfectly legally, but they couldn't get a beer if they wanted to. It seems incomprehensible to me that you would have a set of laws where you can't get a beer, but you can buy a semi-automatic gun and go and shoot up a school.
Actually, what's really interesting to me is that the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So it becomes very frustrating. And it is, Piers, it's the same story over and over and over again. It is bullying, it's disconnection, it's isolation, it's loneliness, it's a focus on activities that are singular. And it is a lot of hurt and pain and suffering. And it's kids that do not have social and emotional competence. They do not have coping mechanisms. They don't have the ability to manage that pain. So it continues to grow into rage. And all they know to do, because they don't know that they have a choice, is to take that pain out on other people. And each and every one could be preventable with literally what we're doing now. That is why I am on the road. And I want to tell you, too, that I have hope. I was addressing a high school today. There were 1,400 kids. This was a Speak Up event that was organized in New Hampshire, our strongest state for Choose Love, because of Governor Sununu, understanding that this is a really important piece for school safety. And the kids knew that they needed help. They wanted to address their mental health. And so they literally created this idea and created the entire day. Their educators and administration got on board and supported them. And so we talked about what was going on in a teenager's life today. There's so much. I mean, we have these cell phones, and we've got 24/7 information that adults really can't handle, that our brains haven't caught up to.
Yeah.
We have front row tickets to the worst of humanity.
Yes.
And we're not giving our kids the skills and tools that they need to manage that trauma that's literally sitting in their hand. And so today I shared with them some really life-transforming and life-saving skills that will help them manage their pain, not just today, but throughout their life. And we know through science is a pathway to flourishing. We need to do more of this, Piers.
Scarlett, I could not agree with you more. I think the desensitization of this generation of kids is a massive problem. I think it's driven by endless exposure to shocking imagery and videos and so on from social media shared around. They're seeing stuff in real time happening minutes after it happens, whereas 40 years ago you would never have seen it. And I think it's a massive problem. I'm awestruck by your courage and your inspiration, to be perfectly honest. I remember Sandy Hook so vividly. It made me upset just remembering it as I thought about your boy and all the others. So thank you for what you're doing, because we've got to try and work our way through this. And there's not a simple solution, but there's got to be a solution.
I'll leave you. I agree, and I'll leave you with this. Jesse left a message on our kitchen chalkboard shortly before he went to school and then later was murdered. He wrote 3 words: nurturing, healing, love. Now, they were phonetically spelled because he was in 1st grade and just learning to write, but I knew then and there that if the shooter had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing, love, the tragedy would never have happened. We know that someone who loves and feels good about themselves, they're not going to want to hurt themselves, and they're not going to want to hurt other people. So that really gave me my mission. Jesse gave me my mission. He and his big brother JT are examples for me for courage. And so I'm going to keep going, because I truly believe in my heart that this is the solution, and that we can reduce and prevent the majority of suffering that we're experiencing in our country and in our world by choosing love.
Yeah. Scarlett, I couldn't put it better than you, because I can't put it better than you. You've just put it as well as it could be expressed. And I just want to end by saying again how heroic your lad Jesse was that day. He saved the lives of so many of his little classmates, and it cost him his life, but what an amazing little hero he was. And I wish you all the very best with your campaigning. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks, Piers.
They're remarkable people, and they belong to the worst club you could ever be in, isn't it? The club of the parents who've never seen their children again because they got gunned to pieces at school in these massacres.